Hi everybody, and welcome to the APEX Weekly Wrap for July 24th, 2020. I'm Maryann Simson, Director of APEX Media.
And I'm Seth Miller from PaxX.Aero.
Seth, I think we might run a little bit over our usual time this week because there's just so much stuff to cover. We'll be talking about progress towards better sustainability in aviation through some announcements made this week. And later we'll have Dan Coleman and Joe Leader from FTE and APEX, respectively, to talk about why the new FTE APEX virtual event is going to be so awesome. But first, we've had a bit of sad news this week, haven't we?
We have, and some of it's sort of bittersweet, some of it's truly sad and unfortunate. But starting with more of the bittersweet, British Airways confirmed this week that it would be retiring the 747 fleet effective immediately. And these are planes that have flown within British Airways for almost 50 years now. It's really sort of hard to imagine the airline without them in the fleet. And they've also, just recently did some interesting and fun things to sort of honor that legacy.
Yeah, so recently British Airways repainted 3 of these jumbo jets with the old BOAC livery to celebrate their centenary, which we actually talk about. We interviewed them about that in one of the other videos on the channel. And they did a flying display with the red arrows, which went down a treat. Everybody really liked that. So it is really sad to think that they've gone to all this effort, that they still really value the aircraft, but unfortunately, due to circumstances these days, they've had to send them all off to their final resting place.
Yeah, it really is sad. It sort of accelerated the retirement by a few years, and it's on the plus side. As we'll get to a little bit later, there is some eco-friendly benefit to it. There are, gas guzzlers to an extent, and so we are reducing that. British Airways isn't the only airline that retired its 747s. Virgin Atlantic also retired them earlier this year, and Qantas also retired its 747s this year, and this week had its send-off as well. They did some joyride flights for folks in Australia, and as they sent them to the scrapyard in California, in the desert, did a bit of a send-off, a special one for the final flight out earlier this week.
Yeah, exactly. They drew a big kangaroo in the sky, which honestly, I got a little bit choked up when I saw that. I think that's a really nice sort of gesture. It looks really cool. You can see the picture here that we've got. So yeah, that's it. They're off to the Mojave Desert. They'll be stripped. And the airline has also grounded its fleet of A380s for the next 3 years. So I think that really points to the fact that they are massively cutting back on long-haul international flights, and they don't really see that coming back as quickly as we all, I think, would hope that it would.
We had a couple bankruptcy filings this week as well. Global Eagle filed for Chapter 11 protection in the United States, and they're an in-flight connectivity and content services provider and have had some financial troubles over the years, but are really keen at this point with the restructuring and sort of looking to the bigger picture and looking forward on what the long term is going to be. I got the opportunity to talk to Josh Marks and Farnborough and the executives there, and they sort of talked about this as the bankruptcy or the refinancing of their debt was inevitable. Certainly unfortunate for investors that it came through Chapter 11 as opposed to some other way, but They are really confident that they've got a future now with the company, and that this round of funding is really going to help stabilize and move the operations forward.
Yeah, I really hope to see Global Eagle come out on the other end of this, still fighting and a little bit healthier. We've done loads of work with them. They've been a long-time APEX member. They've been a big supporter of APEX Media in the past. So looking forward to brighter days for that company.
Yeah, and the second bankruptcy or insolvency filing, as they call it in Germany, ZIM Flugsitz is the ZIM seating company, very well known for their premium economy seat that's been installed and widely acclaimed in a lot of areas. They were a 2014 Crystal Cabin Award winner for their economy seat. So, their seats are flying from Thailand to Canada and everywhere in between. And unfortunately, a couple hundred employees on the payrolls now that are being covered by government funding and this sort of interim program while they try to reorganize.
Yeah, absolutely. Great product from ZIM. They caused a big stir in the industry. And like you said to me earlier before we started filming, that they were a big success story in a market that's incredibly difficult to break into. They innovated. You see ZIM seats on loads of different airlines. They're comfortable, they're inexpensive for the carriers, and they just did really well. So this is a sad one.
Yeah, that's persistent and considerable decline in sales is the phrasing they used, and it's not hard to believe that given where the industry is these days.
Yeah, but meanwhile, some airline groups, companies in the industry are feeling very optimistic, as evidenced by an announcement from Aeroflot this week, where the company CEO came forward and said that, well, he unveiled an updated growth strategy for the group, where he says he intends to have the group being in the top 10 airline groups in the world. He wants to be carrying 130 million passengers by 2028, and he hopes to achieve this capacity by increasing the size of the fleet to 600 aircraft, 235 of which they intend to have as Russian-built aircraft.
Yeah, and so that's more than doubling the fleet size from today, which is huge. Also, getting that many Russian-built aircraft into the fleet in that time frame. Certainly, there are some moves being made by Russian manufacturers to sort of restart and rebuild that industry, but just how many of them will be available and what the sort of certification timelines look like and construction timelines, that's going to be an interesting one. We've also sort of had conversations from Comac out of China around similar things, growing their homegrown aviation industry, trying to break the Airbus and Boeing duopoly. So I certainly respect the push to break that and to have new manufacturers join the industry, but this is a tough industry to break into and a tough time to try to do it.
Setting the bar high. Set the bar high.
Indeed. This week is the Farnborough Airshow, or would have been if Farnborough Airshow happened, but the organization ran it as an online FIA Connect option, and there were still a few announcements that came out. No huge order deals, obviously, but some interesting sort of innovation type deals. And one of them was a joint partnership between Boeing and Etihad for a new ecoDemonstrator plane. And this will be a 787-10 delivered later this year to Etihad, where for the first month or so of its operations, it will actually be used for research purposes rather than just going straight into passenger service.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. This is just one of, they've done this project loads of times with aircraft before they enter service. I know the last one was looking at a lot of smart galley innovations, and there was a lot of really cool stuff that came out of that, a lot of hype around it. Seth, maybe you can fill us in a little bit more about what this speciality of this particular test period will be?
Yeah, this time around they're looking at noise in a lot of ways and fuel efficiency. Quieter landing gear somehow is something that we're testing, so we'll have to see how that plays out.
All right, and then we've got some electric aircraft news as well.
Yeah, so EAG, or Electric Aircraft Group, is the name of the company, and it's a UK company that's looking to bring a sort of full-sized electric passenger airplane into service. They're talking about a 70-seat prop, effectively, sort of competing with the ATR, the Dash 8s. And it's a interesting concept they're talking about. Basically the biggest electric aircraft that has ever really been proposed or, firmly talked about. And they've got a pretty aggressive timeline to get there. So, here's hoping it works, but definitely some challenges ahead.
Yeah, I think we'll be watching closely. There's definitely a lot of countries, I know the UK is one of them, that have some fairly aggressive schemes to try and get aviation to carbon neutrality by dates that are not that far in the future. So if this is a successful aircraft, then it could pave the way for some of those goals to be met.
Yeah, and we should clarify it's a hybrid electric option, so there will be the opportunity for some real engines on it as well. Also, one of the interesting things it has is they're calling it GATOR, G-A-T-O-R, a gear-assisted takeoff run, which is basically putting electric motors on the wheels. So rather than only using the props to propel it forward for takeoff, basically you put the gas down and get a certain amount of speed just from the motors on the wheels. So that'll be an interesting set of circumstances there.
All right. Well, now we're going to be joined by Dan Coleman from Future Travel Experience and Joe Leader, CEO of APEX and the IFSA associations. We're going to be talking a little bit about the new virtual event that launched last week. And this event has been launched in the stead of or in place of FTE Global, which normally takes place in the September in Las Vegas, and of course APEX Expo, which has canceled the in-person conference in San Diego this year. So the two associations are getting together and they've just launched something really cool. So I'll let them explain the rest. Hi, Dan. Hi, Joe. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Maryann and Seth. Thanks for having us on.
Maryann, Seth, thanks so much for having us this week. We really appreciate you taking the time with us today.
So guys, this event has got a lot of bells and whistles. Can you please explain exactly how it's going to work?
This really is a global proposition, and during our two 24-hour live show days on December 8th and 9th, attendees will enter our virtual lobby and choose how they want to spend their time with us. They can enter our exhibition halls dedicated to both in-flight and airport innovation to visit stands and review their latest offerings at their own leisure. Or they could jump right into a video call with the exhibitor to ask questions or request a product demo that could be streamed directly from the exhibitor's offices or perhaps even their factory floors if they have hardware to showcase. Our conference sessions will be running live throughout both days also, from when the business day in Asia begins to when it ends on the West Coast in the US, so we can pull in an incredible speaker lineup from all over the world. The networking lounge will enable premium pass holders to network via messaging or video calls also, because for us, the live days are all about driving strong engagement between participants. After that, for a period of 30 days, virtual attendees will be able to access the FTE APEX Virtual Expo portal at any hour of the day to watch conference presentations and supplier pitch sessions and revisit the exhibition hall to learn all about the products and services that can help them overcome today's challenges.
Thanks, Dan. And who would you say is the target audience for the conference?
We want the focus and the audience to represent all air transport stakeholders, and I'm sure everyone could get a lot from participating. But as you guys know, both FTE and APEX have a real commitment and passion for the subjects of passenger experience, technology, and innovation. So I'm sure that those with a passion for those core pillars of our focus will get a particular kick out of what they see on our exhibition floor and our conference sessions.
Joe, can you give us an idea of what some of the features are from the event that you think the exhibitors and attendees are going to enjoy the most?
Dan and I both shared the view that we had to get beyond the webinars we have all been watching and really active in these last few months. What I think people have missed the most over the past few months has been the real engagement we enjoyed in face-to-face meetings, in our offices or at events that we typically attend, and the platform that we as FT and APEX are working with really enables some of the really incredibly powerful engagements between both exhibitors and attendees.
Sounds great. And in terms of key discussion themes for the actual conference agenda or product demonstrations that we might see in the virtual booths, do you think you can share a little bit of what we expect to see there?
When we realized we were unable to stage events in the last quarter, I spent a lot of time talking to the FTE advisory board members that represent airlines, airports, and suppliers all over the world to test the waters on my idea to go virtual and to poll them on the topics that were most pertinent to their business post-COVID-19. They were all incredibly positive about the Virtual Expo plan, and they helped me formulate the following core pillars of focus that we will be recommending exhibitors and speakers focus their energies around, which are biosecurity, touchless and socially distanced travel, digital transformation and automation, cost reduction and operational efficiency, reimagined guest experiences, protecting and empowering the workforce, off-site and new processing practices, and perhaps most importantly, commercial, retail, and ancillary innovation.
Tying into Dan's points, those pillars really will be the backbone to what we see across the exhibition hall and the conferences. Thanks to both the dedicated airport and in-flight exhibition halls, we can represent absolutely everything across the air travel experience, from the ground to the air. And since we launched FT APEX Virtual Expo last week, we've really been delighted by the incredibly strong response from all of our members to new suppliers to get involved in both of these halls. And then there are dozens of startup members that have joined from the FT Startup Hub. These are companies that will offer very special terms to get involved in the marketplace for the first time. So we're doing something to make sure startups have a chance in this kind of marketplace. We want them to share the innovation and new approaches to the mix alongside major companies. Physical events are much harder for startups to get involved in as they don't have the same resources. It's not just the cost of the booth, it's the cost of the travel, it's the cost of the engagement and finding the right people. We want to remove those barriers to enable airlines, airports, everyone in the marketplace to be able to interact with one another easily across networks, in really making sure that no one has to worry about, is this going to be successful? We're designing an environment that's really designed for everyone's success.
All right, and as a final thought, this week FlightPath 3D announced that they have won two times at a hackathon, online hackathon put on by Airbus. And what they've done is they've won for winner of Preferred App and Best Innovation. And this has everything to do with APIs, doesn't it?
It does. And, so the FlightPath 3D map, certainly very entertaining, very powerful, very cool to look at and scroll through and, play with on planes. And a big push for the company over the recent years has been sort of extending it beyond just being a map for entertainment and making it sort of a platform for integrating lots of other information sources and sharing things, sort of two-directional from the passenger and pushing information back out. And so at the hackathon run by Airbus, they managed to demonstrate a lot of those features, and it was compelling enough that they turned out to be the winners.
Yeah, absolutely. They integrated some duty-free merchandising, advertising, as well as the ability to pay through the map. Third-party apps were using their destination content like street maps, flight tracker to augment some other third-party apps. So it was kind of a two-way street, and it sounds like, they did a lot of great stuff. So we'll congratulate them on that.
Yeah, just got to wait till we get it onto the airplanes for real now. I'm impatient about that sort of thing.
Exactly. All right, well, that is all the time we have today for the weekly wrap. Thank you, Seth, for joining us.
My pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, for watching at home. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video and want to keep abreast of all the other aviation content that we post. You can follow myself and Seth on social media, and please visit apex.aero and
paxx.aero
for the best aviation news out there. See you guys next week.